Steve wasn't a risk-taker. He lived a simple life on a flourishing wheat farm where he grew carrots, potatoes, and pumpkins, and bred pigs. Afternoons were spent talking to Elliot the blacksmith or Avery the librarian who lived in the nearby village. In the village he'd trade wheat and coal for emeralds. He used the emeralds to adorn the walls of his home. Yet that morning, he decided to head to town and exchange some of his extra emeralds for iron. Steve wanted to craft iron armor. Although he never planned on using it, he was cautious and knew it was important to have armor. He also liked crafting things. Elliot was in his shop when Steve arrived and said,
"Hi, Steve. Looking for more emeralds?"
"No." Steve took out the emeralds. "I have too many. I'd like to exchange them for iron ingots."
"What are you gonna do with iron?"
Elliot asked, as he gave Steve the blocks.
"Build another golem? You were so nice to build that for our village."
"Thanks, but I want to craft armor," replied Steve.
"Are you going on an adventure?"
Elliot couldn't believe his ears. Steve was the last person he'd expect to want armor or go on an adventure. "I hope not," Steve smiled. "I just thought it would be good to have in my inventory."
"Enjoy crafting, Steve."
Elliot gave him the iron ingots. On the way home, Steve ran into Avery the librarian, who said, "You should come by the library, Steve. We have lots of new books in."
"Well, I can't today," he told her. "I'm crafting armor."
"How exciting!" exclaimed Avery. "Are you planning an adventure?"
"You know me," Steve remarked.
"I like to stay out of trouble and stick close to home." "Sometimes people don't plan adventures. They just happen." Avery had read every adventure tale in the library. She loved those stories. "That's true," Steve smiled at Avery. "But I'd rather just keep the armor in my inventory and read about adventures in books." Steve crafted his iron armor. He tried it on and walked around his house. "I must look like a warrior," he said to himself as he put the armor away and took a short walk before dusk. Steve would never venture out at night. He knew that was when creepers could attack him. His farm wasn't far from the water, and he walked over and looked out at the enormous blue ocean as he wondered what lands might be on the other side. He had never hopped on a boat to find out. If Steve had an adventure story to tell, it would be about the time he once tamed an ocelot. Lost in the vast, unexplored jungle, surrounded by bushes deep in the jungle biome, Steve spotted an animal racing past him toward an overgrown patch of grass and weeds. As the animal's pace slowed, he could make out its yellow fur covered in black and brownish spots. It was a wild ocelot. The ocelot's piercing green eyes stared menacingly at Steve. Steve's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to tame this wild beast. He offered the feline raw fish, which the hungry ocelot eagerly accepted. With each bite, the ocelot transformed into a tame animal. Slowly, the cat's skin took on a ginger tone until it resembled a typical tabby cat. The ocelot's tail shrunk, signifying it was no longer feral. Steve named the ocelot Snuggles. He'd be the first to admit he felt safer on the farm with Snuggles. As everyone knows, ocelots scare off creepers. Steve was afraid of creepers. Steve knew that if you were careful, you could avoid running into any creepers, skeletons, spiders, silverfish, zombies, and other hostile mobs whose sole purpose was to attack. In fact, Steve had helped secure the village from a zombie attack. He built a fence all the way around the village and placed torches along the main street so all the land inside the wall was brightly lit, day and night. This way he could be sure that zombies wouldn't spawn in his village.